I have been in property since leaving college. I was an trainee estate agent on £12,000 a year, doing different job roles. So I was a trainee estate agent, then I was just an estate agent in sales. Then I went to become a lister. So from there, I then changed to lettings because I wanted to have a bit of diversity, just making sure that I've covered all areas. So from there, I then went into land. And I've never looked back since. There's so many different ways that you can go with property. There was just so many different sectors inside property that I was just trying to work out which one was best for me. Just the whole property industry has always pulled me in. Success means to me freedom financially, freedom to spend time with my children and being able to spend time with them, watching them grow.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Need to Succeed podcast. And on this podcast, what we do is bring on incredible entrepreneurs and just really understand what their journey has been. Because oftentimes what happens is two people go through the exact same situation. And one person decides, because of that situation, they're going to go on to become wildly successful. And another person decides, because of the exact same situation, that they can no longer achieve the things that they wanted to achieve in their lives. Now, look, what's the difference between these two people? That's exactly what we look to uncover on this podcast. And today I have got an incredible guest. We have got the other half of the directors of Land Profits, an absolutely phenomenal entrepreneur. When it comes to land development, planning, anything to do with that, there is no one better. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the director of Land Profits, Ella Hardy.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
You're very, very welcome, Ella.
So excited to be here.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to have you.
So
We've been trying to make this happen for a little minute.
Tell me about it. Yeah. Busy life, lots of kids. It's going to be hard
Absolutely,
to try
absolutely.
and get a day in the diary.
But you know what? I'm super excited that we're finally here.
Yeah,
and I
we're
can't
here.
wait, to really give some value to the audience today.
Yeah, let's do it.
Also,
let's go.
let's make it happen. Let's make it happen. So, Ella, we've got tradition on the podcast.
Okay.
All right. Now, the very first question
Yeah.
is, what does success actually mean to you?
So success means to me freedom financially, freedom to spend time with my children because they're only little, and I think watching them grow is the success in itself, and being able to spend time with them, watching them grow. I think once you are financially free, being able to spend time with your family, that's what success means to me.
Amazing. And it's always funny, isn't it? And I'm glad that you actually said financial freedom, and off the back of that you said family and kids, because it's almost as if sometimes when people are chasing something and they're talking about, the monetary part of it, it's not really the money. It's always like, what does this money actually afford me to do?
Yeah.
Right? And for yourself, it means that money means you're actually able to now spend all the time with your kids, watch them grow without any financial pressures.
Yeah.
And just to be able to just do what you want with them and just enjoy them growing up, right?
Exactly. That's the thing. You have people that are chasing the dream so much and trying to make themselves financially free. However, they're missing their life. They're actually missing the part of life, spending time with loved ones, bringing up your kids, watching them grow. I love taking my little boy swimming, going down the gym for an hour, pop him in the creche, then come out, taking him swimming, just being able to spend that time with him when usually and previously before when working in the corporate world, I'd be in a 9 to 7 job, not being able to do that on a Friday afternoon and spending time with him. He'd be in nursery and I'd be working 9 to 7. So that to me is success and being successful.
It's crazy, isn't it? Because sometimes, people say entrepreneurship, it's a risk. You don't know what you're going to get at the end of it, but what you've just described there, can you imagine you've got kids at home and you are going to work, you're leaving them with someone else is raising these kids and you're there every single minute just thinking about them, but you can't be there with them. And yet, entrepreneurship is a risk where, yes, it's a risk, but I would say that life, doing that for 40, 50 years and then ending up with what at the end of it, you don't actually really know what you're going to end up with. So which is the bigger risk, right?
Exactly. I mean, if I was to go back into a corporate world, as a land buyer, I'd be working 7 till 7. That means I would miss, breakfast, for, feeding my kids breakfast. I'd miss bath times in the evening, let alone throughout the day, all of the fun things we could have been doing. Legoland, swimming, all of like the jungle tots, all of that sort of stuff. And that somebody else would be doing with my kids. When in fact, now I work, for a few hours a day, a couple hours a day, making more money than I ever have, but being able to spend time with my kids.
Incredible. That's the dream, isn't it?
Exactly. That is success to me. That is success, especially when, I'm a member at like a gym spa place, right? And they have the creche, they have the gym, they have the restaurant, they have all of the soft plays. Honestly, I can go there in the morning and spend all day on my lunch whilst he's in the creche, get on the laptop, find some sites. I'll be finding sites, adding them to my database. So every week on a Friday is the day that I send my sites. But all I need to do is an hour a day. An hour a day is all the time that I need to put into finding sites. So my aim is to send 50 letters per week. So for me, 50 letters per week. I usually see a response rate of 5%. So literally, some of those wouldn't work. Like, so I'd get people come back to me, landowners come back to me, and some of those wouldn't work for many reasons, constraints, trees, I don't know, electricity pylon, or something like that. However, so every week, all I need to do is spend that amount of time, an hour a day, so that I get to my 50 letters. Then from there, I'll get the responses back, and then I can start booking site visits.
Wow.
And there we go.
Incredible.
All it takes is an hour a day.
Well, look, all of this sounds really, really good, but I know people are sitting there thinking, okay, cool, who's Ella? Like, how did she actually get, now you're saying, I don't do this 7 to 7 anymore, I'm chilling, I'm spending 2 hours a day, all of that's good. But what I love on this podcast is really understanding that journey, because there's enough of all that out there already. People just looking at all of the successes. And a lot of times people don't actually understand this person is just like you and me. Yeah. They just made a conscious decision to change the trajectory of their life. And as a result of that, they got to where they are today, right?
Risks. That's what it is, taking risks.
Absolutely.
I mean, I have been in property since leaving college. So I've always been in property. I was an trainee estate agent on £12,000 a year.
Big money.
Plus 2% commission.
That was big money though. What do you mean? Big money coming out of college. Come on.
I was balling. And then I got £1,000 car allowance on top of that.
What?
Yeah, so I thought I was winning coming out of college. So I was an estate agent for about 3 years, doing different job roles. So I was a trainee estate agent. Then I was just an estate agent in sales. Then I went to become a lister. So from there, I then changed to lettings because I wanted to have a bit of diversity, just making sure that I've covered all areas. So from there, I then went into land. And I've never looked back since. So, working for small developers, I worked for a development company based in Windsor. Small development company, was working with them for a few years, and then I worked with one of the top 5 house builders in the UK, which is Vistry, which is Bovis and Linden. So I worked for them for the last several years until I decided to give it up and completely focus on land profits.
Incredible. Like, what is it about property? Because you've just you started and you just stuck on it, right? What is it about property?
Don't know what it was. Just always loved it. Just loved property. The idea of how much money's in it. Thinking of there's so many different ways that you can go with property. There was just so many different sectors inside property that I was just trying to work out, which one was best for me. Mm-hmm. Just the whole property industry has always pulled me in, but I was just trying to work out what one that I love the most. I mean, developments for me, and I think developments for everybody in property is the end goal. Mm-hmm. So I was just trying to think of a clever way, a smart way of getting there quicker. And I came across a land buyer role, and that is exactly what I needed to do to learn all about developments.
Yeah, it really kind of opened up your eyes. Because, I was speaking to someone yesterday talking about, deal packaging, and it's like, well, actually, that's just the foundation. If you want to get into property, you need to understand how to find deals, irrespective of what strategy you're going to be using. Yeah. So for anyone who wants to be a developer, having that skill set to be able to actually find, land opportunities, that's just invaluable, right?
Yeah, exactly. Learning all about planning policies, measurements, just having all of that knowledge beforehand, before going out on my own, was just so key. And just actually trialing developments, whilst working for someone else and being paid. I was being paid to learn pretty much. Yeah. A lot of people, instead of, have their 9 to 5 and they'll do something like this on the side. However, this was my 9 to 5.
Yeah.
So that's the way that I learned and got paid for it, and then went out on my own.
So you've had this traditional kind of corporate trajectory, right? You went in
Yeah.
straight into lettings, you know, you had the car, all of that, like the typical sort of corporate
Yeah,
thing.
corporate
you
world.
know, you know, you go to land buying, like this is good. Like, you're doing well.
Yeah.
Like, why do you start thinking about ruining all of that and then throwing all of that away and going into?
I could
like,
see
the
how much
entrepreneur?
profit they were making, and
Yeah.
I was being paid a wage, and
Yeah.
I'm like, hang on, I could do this for myself. So I thought, you know, my mind's ticking. You know, when I'm working in this corporate world, I'm thinking, do you know what? I could get an investor for this upfront planning fee amount. You know, I could find small development sites with inside the settlement boundary, 1 or 2 units, really quick to go through planning. We're talking about 6 to 12 months, and I could get an investor for this upfront fee, and yeah, I could do it myself, and then sell the sites on with planning and make the uplift in value. So that's exactly what I did, instead of, you know, building them out and being stuck with the development finance. And, you know, I just thought, there's a quicker way to do this. Like, we could get planning, find off-market land opportunities, get planning, and sell them on to
Incredible.
developers. And then we make that 10% uplift, well, around about 10% uplift. That's what we hope for. And yeah.
Incredible. So it was just almost like a natural trajectory for you, right?
Yeah.
You know, but the truth is, like, there's other people doing the job that you're doing,
Yeah.
but they didn't think about it.
It's taking the risk.
Right.
Do you know? That's what it is. It's having the balls, really,
Yeah.
to say, do you know what? I'm not just going to do this 9 to 5.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just not going to be happily with my, you know, 70K basic, or I want to go out there and I want to be my own boss. I want to take time of my own time, you know, instead of working your 7 to 7, you say, actually, I could do this and make more money than I'm making now, but I will also have my time. And that was the biggest thing for me. Was I loved my job. I loved working in land opportunities and developers, but I just wanted my time back. And especially when I then decided, right, I'm going to start having children. No, I really need my time back.
But where does that come from? Once again, you know, people have similar situations. They have kids, you know, they work in those jobs. You're like, where does that confidence or even that mindset to actually, I want to do this myself? Like, is there a point that you can kind of, you know, pinpoint in your life where you just always kind of thought, I want more? Or is,
I think it's just that normal, you know, driving to the office every day, you know, that half an hour commute, getting up at 6:30, getting ready, getting out the door, driving all the way to the office, sitting there all day, you know, doing exactly what you're told to do instead of being out there living for you. I think that was the hardest point. I think it's always been a thing within my career, is that growing is that the fact that just sitting in an office being told what to do, you know, you've got half an hour to eat now, you know, go and eat and then come back. You know, I don't want to be told I've only got half an hour to eat and I'll be eating last night's leftovers. No. So that, I think it was just a build up of all of those things, just thinking that I just want to
makes sense.
Get
Who was
out there.
Ella in school?
Who was Ella in school?
Yeah.
Oh. No, not a good question. Naughty. Naughty. Went through a couple of schools, if I'm being brutally honest.
Yeah, that's good.
Went through a couple of schools. ADHD kid.
Yeah.
ADHD woman. So, and I was an ADHD kid. So really struggled with following directions. I think that's something throughout my career that I've always, you know, struggled with, taking directions from other people. So yeah, it was just, yeah.
So why did you have to go to a couple of different schools?
Just because, yeah, following directions.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to listen to, you know, what you're telling me to do.
You're not listening.
No.
Yeah.
I want to do what I want to do,
Yeah.
not what you're telling me to do.
No, but it's interesting because, you know, it's one of those funny things where when you listen to a lot of successful people, there's always this same thing of, well, look, I'm not listening to the teachers, and the teachers say I'm never going to amount to anything because I'm not listening.
I was told that all the time.
Yeah.
You know, after suspensions and things like that, you know, told that I'm not going to go anywhere.
When you heard that, how did that make you feel?
I mean, at the time, I always knew I was going somewhere, so they couldn't tell me I wasn't going.
How did you know that?
Well, because I believe in myself. You know, I think that's the biggest thing, that I always knew that I was going to get somewhere. Always going to get somewhere. But it just makes me laugh. I did see my old tutor, and one that I didn't get on very well with, in his beat out Ford whilst I pulled up in my Range Rover, like, hi, how are you doing? Do you remember when I said I weren't going anywhere?
Wow.
But that was a good point. But yeah, I mean, I just always believed in myself. I just always had that ambition and drive to always get there. I never lacked on that.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the fact is, to be an entrepreneur, like, you have to be able to make decisions. You have to have this, this free thinking mind where you see a problem and other people are running away from it, but you're saying, how can I actually solve this problem? Whereas the education system isn't really designed for you to be a problem solver.
Yeah.
It's purported that way, but actually it's like you can solve the problem within these parameters. Here's a problem. This is how you solve it.
Yeah.
And everyone has that exact same formula.
Yeah.
Whereas as an entrepreneur, like, you need to be able to look outside of these parameters and say, how can I solve this problem in a different way? Or how can I actually come out completely out of this whole area and say, what's another solution, to this problem these people are facing? So, and obviously when you're dealing with people who are meant to be on top of you and they don't understand that ability for you to actually think freely, then it could obviously be quite combative.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, cool. So that same trait, how did you find that when you went into the corporate world? Because now you've come out, you're an estate agent. It's quite a demanding role.
Yeah.
Right? It can be.
The amount of time, the working hours you've got, Saturdays, had to work weekends, long hours, low money.
Yeah.
But yeah, just always had a vision of being in property and knew that I had to start somewhere.
How did you find it in terms of authority with like managers and stuff like that?
Yeah, it was okay. I've just never, that's one thing that I've just never really, I knew that I had to be there. I have to listen to directions. I didn't know anything. I had to learn. And this is something that I was interested in learning. So I wanted to be there. I wanted to learn. So it's slightly a bit different than when you're in school and you're told to be there. I wanted to be an estate agent. I wanted to be in property. I wanted to learn all of the knowledge. So I was just like a sponge for those first few years, just taking it all in, listening to some of my managers and seeing how they've, grown in their career. And they're just kind of taking my own path, going, okay, right, now's the right time to jump to lettings. And now's the right time to go to a different company because I could learn this at a different company. That's one thing looking back in my career is that I always took the right jump. But it was a risk every single time. I swapped companies. I went from corporate to small family businesses to corporate. I moved around at the right times for me to learn a different sector and a different part of property. I think that's one thing I did do, was taking risks to a different sector.
What do you think is the power in taking risks?
If you don't take risks, then you don't know where you could potentially be. I think risks are so important throughout any part of your journey because everything's a risk. When you don't know what the future holds, it is a risky game, isn't it? You could stay where you are because, it's easy and you're happy there and you know that you've got money coming in, or you can take a risk and try and be happier, which I think is really key to anybody's life, is that you need to take those risks to make 100%. Sure that you get to where you want to be.
100%.
Yeah.
And just kind of going back to something you said as well, you said you actually wanted to learn.
Yeah.
Like when you were at this estate agency, and it's so important as well because, once again, going back to the whole school thing, is you're learning all these things and you're being taught all these things in school that perhaps you've got literally zero interest in, and you're expected to sit there for 9 hours a day and pay attention to it.
Yeah.
And because you don't want to pay attention to it, then all of a sudden you're disruptive and you're disturbing everyone else. But whereas when you actually find something that you want to do, all of a sudden it's a different mindset. You're saying, actually, you know what? Here's an environment. I want to learn this stuff, so now I'm going to sit there and pay attention.
Yeah, it's slightly different, when I've got ADHD, and I easily get distracted if I don't find it interesting. It's really easy to do. So yeah, I mean, in school it was a lot easier to get distracted and talk. I'm a chatty person, so turning around and chatting to the person behind me was always the thing that I would do. So yeah, but when you're interested in something, I think that kind of goes away. And I think a lot of people, and with a lot of kids in school, once a lot of ADHD kids in school, they're told that they're disruptive and they're never going to go anywhere, but they just need to find the right thing for them, and what they're interested in, and then then they'll be good.
That's incredible. And obviously what you've now done is you've taken that skill, you've gone on to have massive success for yourself. And I really like what's interesting, what you guys are doing is you are finding these opportunities, you're adding value to them by actually taking them through planning. And now that's what you're making your money. You're saying, you know what? I'm not ready to move on to developments here. I don't want that extra element of risk. I don't want it. So I'm just going to just keep doing this. I can keep doing this all day, every single day.
Yeah.
And, the rest is up to the developers to then do from there, which is really,
I think
really
that the biggest thing is that we have done our own developments. We've JV'd on opportunities. But the thing is, every single time you go back to my original point is that you're on site from 8 a.m. to sometimes 8 p.m. in the freezing cold, in the pissing down rain. I mean, you don't have that freedom again. And you've then stressing about development finances, making sure that you're, hitting your timescales. And again, for us, it's easier to do 3 or 4 of these planning flips a year. And we get to spend time with our families, and it's a lot less stressful. Once an application's in, it's in. So we just have to, work with the consultants and just wait for their responses to come back, and work alongside them, and then look for more opportunities. So we would earn similar profits from doing 4 or 5 of those a year than just working on one development site. And again, you'd be on site 6 days a week.
Incredible.
That's not what I want out of life. So.
And I think that's an important distinction to make as well, because other people might say, you know what, they want to go and do those land deals, and but going back to the very first question, which is what does success mean to you? You've got a very clear definition.
Yeah,
it's financial freedom, so I can spend time with my family and love those. Not I just want to make as much money as possible.
No.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like, well, you're gonna say, well, actually, I'll just rather you want to make all that money. There you go. There's the deal. You go and crack on. You go and stay in the rain and all that sort of stuff. And I'll just take, the money and I'll go find another deal. And that's really, really smart. And why did you guys now decide to start? Because you guys are doing incredible things, like within the community, right? With property space, you're now actually educating a lot of people to do these things, which is really changing people's lives. Like being able to find land. Like what was that process? Talk me through that.
Well, how to find land?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, pretty much. We have partnership with a software called Searchland. So that's one of the systems that I use. However, I do teach the free ways, because when I first started out in land buying, none of these fancy softwares were out there. None of them. I was one of the first people to use Nimbus Maps, and the director of the company came to my development company and showed us about it when it first came out. However, before then, I just used ProMap, which was the old version. ProMap and my local council website with their local plan and their planning policy map. That's how I first started out with my career. So we had none of these amazing softwares that are out there at the moment, like Searchland. But there is something that saves you time. It's a lot easier to find sites when you're working, with a software. But there are other ways of doing it, and using your council website and just an ordnance survey map, you can find sites. So
incredible.
But we teach. There's a lot of content obviously within our class. It's hard to break down, but it's knowing your local planning policies, knowing your measurements, knowing the area in terms of viability, if it's in need of housing. One thing that we always say is about 5-year housing supply. You want to be making sure and checking your areas. If that's below, then that you've got high chance of gaining planning.
Incredible. And in terms of, because you guys have got there's something else, let's say unique way that you guys actually do it, right? Because when you're thinking about land, you're thinking about a lot of money, right? And people are saying, I haven't got a lot of money to be getting into land. So how do you guys actually
secure them under option agreements? So we secure them under an option agreement, and the transactional amount is £1. So that's what you need to have to be able to enter into an option agreement. So we find off-market direct-to-vendor land opportunities that are inside the settlement boundary. So, a lot of these opportunities are, land opportunities that people think of this big open space land that you see these huge developers working off. They would have taken, anywhere from 3 to 10 years to get planning for. We look for already allocated residential land that we can speak direct to the landowner, so direct to the homeowner, send them a letter, and get an option agreement signed in with them, and then put it through planning. My perfect site is up to 10 units. anything above then, you start looking at, social housing, and it just gets very costly. I like these 1 or 2 units.
Different level of competition, right? And
yeah.
Once again, it's, if you're showing someone who's never done land before, you're saying, how can you just get in, start making money without all of these extra barriers? That's just perfect, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is a lot easier than you think. I mean, I spend, like I said, an hour a day. When I spend an hour a day, I usually find 20 to 30 new sites in that hour. So,
Wow.
sometimes that's on a good day. I mean, sometimes if my eyes are tired, you've looked over the same, you looked over the same things. Yeah. You might not find that. You might find old sites, and you never know. I could have spent an hour and only found 6 new sites. But once you tally those up throughout the week, usually hit my target over around about 50 letters.
Incredible.
I mean, when I worked as a corporate world, my target was 150 letters a week.
Wow.
Yeah. So now I've dropped that down to, for myself, 50 letters. Because I'm not
50,
I'm not working 7 to 7. So so I'll just do 50 letters a week, and use some of my old database and look for new opportunities.
Amazing.
Follow-ups.
And the beauty of all that experience you've got working for the corporates is you understand, what the numbers are. If I send this amount, I'm going to get this back. Like, you just understand the numbers, and, you're using exactly the same process that they've been using. So obviously you know what results you're going to get. So you're really able to plan out your year as long as you're consistent with the actions you're taking.
Consistent,
right?
Just making sure I'm consistent every day, just at least spending that 1 hour. I've done lots of day in the lives on it on my Instagram, just showing you how I drive around with my children sleeping in the back. I went out a few weeks ago and I made a video just so it was nap time for both my kids. I've got 2 children under 3, so it's hectic, absolutely hectic. But it was nap time, so I put them in the car. We all know as parents, they go to sleep easier in the car. So instead of me just putting them in the car and then coming home, what I did was drive around for an hour. Spent that time looking for new development sites. I found 15.
Wow.
All the time while my kids are napping, I've now found 15 new development sites just from driving around my local area.
Wow.
So it's just being smart, working smart, and making sure, I'm working smart, making sure that I'm dealing with my time appropriately to be able to be successful.
Why did you guys decide to start teaching people this stuff?
Just because, the amount of knowledge that I've got throughout the years just felt right to be able to, create a community, because that's really what we've got. We've got a community that we work on opportunities with other people and with our mentees. And it's great. We've got a great community base where we just work on opportunities with each other.
Yeah.
And then, I've got a lot of knowledge. So if you're starting within the development game and land industry, then we can work together and JV on opportunities, and, you can take my knowledge and we can work together that way.
Yeah, it's so incredible, because I was speaking with your partner Phil previously, and I'm coming back to the baby stuff. Is you've had to split the interview up because you were looking after doing his, and then now he's looking. But this is normal, though. Yeah, this is normal. This is life, right?
It's hard for us to do. It's so funny because we are together all of the time, but I don't think anybody ever sees us together because someone's always got the children, and that's what we always have to do. Like every week we do mentoring calls on a Monday evening, and nobody ever sees Phil. Like there must think he doesn't exist because he's dealing with the kids and doing bedtimes, and then I'm on the call with our mentees. So it's just juggling it all, you know. And that's another great thing is because we both work together on land opportunities, we're both home, so we both get time with the children as well.
That's amazing.
They are in childcare a couple of days a week, so that we're able to work, but they're at home most of the time.
That's amazing. I mean, just kind of going back to that as well, because what you guys are doing with your community is just phenomenal, because I know the education space within the property space very, very well. And what you guys are offering, Phil was saying, when people come in, then they're in. Yeah. Right? And that's just insane. Right? Yeah. But that kind of shows that it's really coming from a different place, really coming from a place of service, because it's like, well, once you're in, we're just going to keep working with you until you just keep securing deals. And, once you're in, you're in. And that's incredible, because generally these things are 6 months, 12 months. And
a year. So we started, we've been going for the last couple of years. We started with the 12-month thing like everybody else does. However, what I found over the last couple of years is that the natural progression is that people after 12 months, they don't need to speak to me every week. They don't need to come on our mentoring calls every week. So, but I don't want to tell them that I don't want to talk to you anymore. No, if you've got an opportunity we want to work together on, talk to me whenever, you know. But it's a natural progression. After you've been with me a year, you're not going to be wanting to speak to me every week. You don't need to. You've learned everything. Well, not everything, because not everybody knows everything. But, you know, you can go out on your own. I don't have to speak to you every week. You know what you're doing now.
Yeah.
So that they'll just come back when they might want some advice on a site, or, you know, potentially work on a site with us. So, yeah, I just felt like it's a one-time membership, because we want to work with you for life. You know, we don't want to just, after 12 months, see that, bye. It just doesn't feel right. You know, we want to create a community that, you know, you can work with us, you know, for the rest of your life. Yeah,
that is incredible. That's genuinely very, very unique in the industry. And, you guys, you know, and the results that you guys are getting, I was just saying, we've been just speaking, going through, you know, the people who've actually found deals and have done this in your community. Just amazing when you think of, you know, what this could actually mean, because land, it's, you know, it's not a rent to rent
and
deal.
a lot of them had no experience whatsoever.
Right. It's not a rent to rent deal. It's not small. This is a lot of money.
Yeah, and a lot of them had no experience whatsoever in property. You know, we're just tired of their 9 to 5. So they've come on to here, learn everything, and then are actively out there finding opportunities, which is amazing.
Amazing. So, like, what do you feel is the next level for you guys now?
I'd like to take on more sites a year. And I think, you know, because, you know, I only had a baby 8 months ago. So once I have a little bit more time in the summer, I'm hoping to then take on more opportunities. And over the next 12 months, you know, like I said, we deal with 3 or 4 maybe a year. I'd like to up that to maybe like 6 whilst working with other students. You know, I've got a few sites that I'm working on with students at the moment. But then again, like I said, I'm just starting to look for my own opportunities again. So yeah, just about 6 would be good. Incredible.
Honestly, it's been such a fascinating conversation, and you know, I'd definitely like to get you lot back here again, you know, and have
down for it,
you know, another conversation, because now this has been really, really informative, and I think what you guys are doing really unique in this space, and I think, you know, over the next sort of, you know, couple of years, you guys can really create a massive ripple in the industry, because people aren't really doing, you know, what you're doing. People are kind of stuck in that middle thinking, oh, land development, this is just too big, I can't do it, or I've got to wait all this time to get this money back. Well, what you guys are actually doing is like that middle ground. You're coming in low entry point with basically no money apart from your setup costs.
Well, we've got our planning investors. That's the biggest thing that we offer, is that we have got a panel of planning investors that I have personally created myself whilst doing these opportunities, that trust the fact that I know what I'm looking at. And we've got a panel of investors. You don't even have to use your own money when it comes to planning. Use someone else's. Wow. You know, especially for your first few developments, you know, in your first few planning applications, because you don't want to be risking your own money. Risk theirs. They're happy to risk it. So use other people's money. So that's really what we do. Wow.
Incredible. Love that, man. Awesome. So look, wrapping this up, we've got a final question, because, you know, what you guys have done so far, incredible, you know, what you've been able to achieve. And then now, you know, you're now doing your own thing. You got your free time. You've left the corporate. You know, you're now helping educate other people to do the same things, hopefully, that you've done as well. So like today, with everything you've achieved, like, what is now your need to succeed?
What is my need to succeed? Bigger of everything, I think. That bigger house, more holidays, more time to spend on life and with loved ones, I think. You know, I think that's my need to succeed, I think.
Incredible.
Just loving life and being able to, spend my time with my loved ones in a bigger house, on more holidays, and nicer things, I think. And just working with our community and just building our community and building that brand and name.
Brilliant. Ella Hardy, thank you very much.
Thanks, Obi.